Hey everybody, it's Justin Cohen, best-selling author, international speaker, and founder of theultimateskill.com. If you've been following my work, you know that I do a program on happiness. Happiness is the ultimate skill. But one of the things that I realized a couple of years ago shook my view of happiness. And that was something that happened within my own family, with my mother, and that's why I've brought her here today.
Hello.
Mama, it's so good to have you here.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And you know, I think many of us in the personal development field, we focus on mindset and attitude and all those inner world ways to master our state. And I still absolutely believe those are critical. But one of the things that I think we neglect, we have this kind of weird relationship with neurochemistry, with what's going on in our brain, with our, you get a little emotional, Mom, because you're going to hear you're going to hear a very emotional story. So that's it. There's no apology. There's no apology required. And this for me has taken us a while to get together to shoot this. And I know that this is a little difficult for you because, hey, this is a little difficult for me too, because this was something that that I've been teaching all my life. As you know, I wasn't the happiest kid. I was a depressed kid. When I was 11, I wanted to end it all. Don't worry, I didn't do it. But the point is that I grew up, Emma, you'll allow me to say this, yes, with a mother who was depressed and anxious. And that was really tough. One of the things that we know is that when you are brought up in a family with somebody who is depressed and anxious, it's kind of contagious. And I'm not blaming you for that, because I know that, you grew up in a family with your mother who was depressed and anxious, and she probably grew up in a family. And this is one of the reasons that I'm so attracted to this work, because I'm like, damn it, we're going to stop the cycle. Yeah, and that's why I've been so committed to this path of mindset and attitude and so on. And then my mother, everything that I teach, I think I've often shared with you, and I'm not my mother's savior. You were always on this path, right? You read all the books, right?
All the self-help books.
You read the self-help books. You went to therapy.
Yeah.
Right? You did the therapy. She really worked hard at it. And, it was really tough to see that, it's overall for somebody who doesn't do the work, and you're like, well, you know what, if you don't want to actually go and do something about it. My mother was doing it. One of the things that I talk about is exercise. Exercise, is a very powerful serotonin booster. My mother, you can see, by the way, she's turning 69 next year. That's pretty good, right? This year.
This year.
She looks phenomenal. Why does she look phenomenal? Because she exercised, because she got how important that was. So my mother was doing many of the things that I teach, and even more.
And yoga, a lot of yoga, and meditation.
And meditation. And yet still it was like, darn it, she just couldn't break through. So many years ago when I studied psychology, I came across a book in the mid-1990s by a guy called Kramer. I want to say David Kramer, but that's the singer guy. So yes, David Kramer. But Kramer wrote a book called, brilliant psychiatrist, wrote a book called Listening to Prozac, about how he had worked with people over the years doing intense psychotherapy. And, they just couldn't change, some of these people. And then Prozac came along, which is a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So serotonin is one of the neurotransmitters in the brain. And suddenly they were breaking through. And of course I read this and I was like, I was ready for my mother to try anything. And I don't know if you remember, I asked her to do this. Now you're very against modern medicine, right? So you've always homeopathy as your thing.
And I tried a lot of homeopathy. I did. Herbal, homeopathic, and I went on and on for years and years. Somehow,
and
so, the right for me.
Okay, so when I said to you, look, it looks like there's this drug called Prozac, which is making a big impact on the depressed people. Do you want to try it? Why didn't you want to do it back then?
Because I felt that I would try one, it wouldn't work. I would go to another, because that's the things that I heard from other people. Right. This didn't work, that didn't work. And I didn't know where to go.
And you never believed in medicine. For you, homeopathy was kind of and we have a bit of a difference of opinion here. I personally believe that homeopathy is placebo effects, and we'll discuss that later. It's a powerful effect. I'm grateful that I was on homeopathy because I never had an antibiotic until I was 23. But quite frankly, I don't believe that those things are doing very much. And certainly, while you do believe they do a lot for you, they weren't doing much for your depression and anxiety.
No, nothing.
So when I, back in when was this? Probably the 90s, was suggesting Prozac. That wasn't, you weren't going to do it. Then something happened, right? When was this, Ma? It was about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, about 18 months ago, I went into such a depression and such an anxiety slope that I couldn't rise from it. And the Zainul thing, I was taking Zainul.
Right. Well, that was the first time that my mother started using a pharmaceutical, which was Zainul, which is an anti-anxiety. We'll talk about that as well. Zainul is very problematic because it's highly addictive. It builds up a big tolerance effect.
It was wonderful.
It was wonderful for 5 minutes, right? Yeah. But then you have this big, what we call rebound effect. So you feel good with Zainul. Zainul is a benzo, what we call a benzo, has a specific impact on the brain. It's not the same kind of drug as Prozac. But the problem with it is that you then have this rebound. You then need more and more and more.
5.
Highly addictive. You got into 5.
Wow, a day.
Wow.
And I had to tell my homeopath, and she said, "You are becoming a drug addict."
Yeah.
And I realized I couldn't stop.
Right.
But then I did stop, but I stopped cold
turkey. And I have a little confession to make here. Who got her onto Zainul? I'll tell you why I did. By the way, Zainul, I know, is a highly addictive drug. What I wanted my mother to feel was what it was like not to have anxiety. Do you understand? I mean, your whole life is just, you just had these these butterflies in your stomach, right? I mean, you were like, you were constantly anxious. And I was like, I just want her to have that experience. So I knew Zainul was problematic, but it was like, just try this because, you know, and I'm glad that you did, because I think what you did is you realized, oh my gosh, I know what it's like this is not homeopathy, it's the devil's medicine.
And I got into a different path.
Right, you got into, but here's the critical thing.
Yeah.
You came up to me one day, you said, look, you need to commit me, right?
Yeah. I said, please take me to hospital.
Take me to hospital.
I can't anymore.
She was so desperate. And I said, look, I'll commit you. You know, we'll do whatever we need to do. But I said, first things first, let's go see a psychiatrist. Just go see a psychiatrist, because my understanding of the brain was that I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a doctor, but I know that it can take a little while to get the right medicine, to get the combination. Went to see a wonderful psychiatrist.
Luckily.
Lovely lady.
Luckily, yeah.
Did one session with her, and she decided to put you on
Prozac.
On Prozac. Well, right. So Prozac is a serotonin booster. What happened?
It wasn't good. I went on for about 6 weeks thinking, what am I going to do? And I was desperate. And my psychiatrist...
Because it actually got worse, didn't it?
It did.
So for these 6 weeks, you started getting nauseous.
Yeah.
You were like, I don't want to do this. And fortunately, it's a good thing you didn't stop, right? Because it wasn't...
No, I didn't stop. I went back to her and she said, we can either change it or just persevere. And I thought, I must just persevere. And I was taking Rivotril with it because that was for the anxiety.
Yeah.
And it was every day and twice a day. And one day I said to Justin, I don't need the Rivotril today. He said, what? And this went on day after day. I need less. And he said, really? The Prozac kicked in.
Wow.
I was living a different life and never thought it would happen.
Now this is the most beautiful thing, and this is where I get a little emotional. Because you got to know what it's like, your whole life, to see your mother struggling and in pain, right? And you have dedicated your life to figure out the human condition. You've dedicated your life to figure out the human mind, and nothing seems to work. And suddenly, I mean, just tell us what happened when it kicked in for you.
I said, Justin, I can't believe this. And Justin was so happy that it made me emotional, because I thought, what have I done to my child? Because I used to phone him early in the morning and tell him how terrible I felt, and he was trying so hard. And I realized Justin is frightened for me. I've got to do what he says. But it was wonderful. I mean, I just realized I had to open my eyes to something different, because it worked. It actually worked. And Justin was showing me off to people. What do you think of my mother? What do you think of my... And it was incredible.
I mean, the great thing is my mother is not... Her personality is not radically transformed. You're not a different person. My mother's always quirky. She's always kind of a little weird and a little funky, and she's still weird and quirky and funky.
Now more so, because it's brought the rest of me in.
Now it's like more joyful, weird and quirky and funky.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to get messages from her of like, Justin, I want to end it all.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, to have...
What do I do? Yeah.
That's tough. And, you know, to get messages now of like smiley faces and like, you know, I'm so joyful. Actually, I wish I had some of these messages with me. Messages, I could never believe my mother was going to send messages like this.
Well, I remember the one message I sent, Justin, I don't know what to do with this happiness because I'm not used to it.
Wow.
And Justin said, "No, just enjoy it." Yeah, but I don't know how to.
Yeah.
But I fell into it.
I mean, it's the most incredible thing. I mean, I never thought I'd say this. My mother is one of the happiest human beings that I know. You know, people sometimes say, there's actually a wonderful psychiatrist, Sonia Lubomirsky. She says, antidepressants don't make you happy. No. I mean, that's nonsense, right? Sonia, look at my mother. Don't tell me it doesn't make you. And I think that's part of the bias we have in our society. Drugs aren't supposed to make you happy. We've got this very weird, quite frankly, screwed up notion about drugs, and partly because some drugs are illegal and some drugs aren't. And the bottom line is that the brain is complex, and I'm not going to tell you that we don't understand exactly how it works, but you were able to take this drug that changed your neurochemistry. Now, some people might say placebo. There's a lot of people say that it cannot be a placebo.
No.
There's
I didn't believe in it.
Correct.
So
there's something called the nocebo effect. So nocebo is if you don't believe in something, you actually get a negative effect. You should have had a nocebo effect. My mother's the one.
Did initially?
Well, correct. That can happen though with Prozac. You can have a negative effect even without nocebo. So the fact that you didn't believe this, you didn't even want this to work, because this went against my mother's ingrained belief that kind of allopathic medicine isn't the way to go. It's homeopathic. Correct. She sees it as poison. So somebody actually believes they're taking poison, gets better. You've got to know there's something going on here. But I suppose we're doing this video as well because I just kind of want to say to anybody out there who maybe has tried everything else, do this properly. Go to a psychiatrist. Everybody's brain is different. By the way, let's be clear. Prozac only works for about 50% of depressed people. Okay, so just if you're out there and you're depressed, just know it may not work for you. The other thing is we know that Prozac is far more effective, and all psychiatric drugs are far more effective when you do many of the things that I teach in the Ultimate Skill. When you do many of the things that you do. I mean, you continually do the internal work.
And I must just add that I did carry on doing exercise no matter how depressed I was, and it did nothing for me. Yeah, only the Prozac.
Well, this is interesting because we know exercise gives us a big serotonin boost, and the exercise didn't actually shift your mood.
Nothing.
I still maintain that you're better off doing the exercise even if you didn't feel the shift in your mood.
But I need to just add something here about the Prozac. After taking it for about a year, I realized that my body was getting used to it, and it wasn't as happy as it was when I first took it.
Right.
And I thought to myself, yes, I know I can go back and she can change it, but the same thing's going to happen. So I thought to myself, you know what? It's taken that terrible edge off. So if my body's used to it, and I sometimes get that because it's part of me, I can handle it. It let me handle my life with the things that were feeling a little bit negative.
But I think this is important, that, that this doesn't mean you're going to be happy all the time. No. I teach happiness. I have downtimes, I have downtimes. It's where your baseline level is, right? I talk about this a lot in the Ultimate Skill. We've all got a baseline level. My mother's baseline was here. When I was a kid, my baseline was here. Applying what I teach, my baseline went up here. For my mother, she needed to change her neurochemistry to get her baseline up here. Soon after my grandmother died, you grieved, you were upset, she wasn't blunted, and I think that's important for people to understand as well. Having said this, there are some people who are on this drug who shouldn't be on it, who are taking this drug thinking, oh, it's going to sort everything out, and then they stop doing the other things that they need to do. So let's be very clear here. This point of this video is not, hey, if you're down, take this. We're all different. But what I am saying is that neurochemistry cannot be avoided. And by the way, there are a lot of natural supplements, yes, because I do want to distinguish natural supplements from placebos, because there are some natural supplements,
they do help.
Things like scaletium, St. John's wort, without some of the side effects. Because here's the problem: a lot of people get side effects with Prozac. Have you had side effects?
Well, as I say, initially I did, because I didn't feel good at all.
But
other
now,
than that, no.
You don't.
No.
So, I mean, my mother's fortunate there. A lot of people have side effects, but again, she doesn't, and you may not. And the point really is that investigate that. Investigate the neurochemistry. I think it's the last thing to investigate, but I just think that because my mother had done so much through her life, you could have investigated it a lot earlier than you did.
I could have, but there's something I'd like to add to that. I have recently injured myself doing yoga when I shouldn't have been doing, but anyway, that's besides the point. This injury is depressing. It's debilitating, and I'm thinking to myself, if I hadn't gone on to Prozac, would I be able to handle this? Because I'm handling it.
Oh yeah, my mother's actually got quite a severe injury right now. I promise you, prior to this, you would have been a basket case. I know. You would have been every day twitching and worrying. And I actually wanted to say to you yesterday, I haven't heard you, do you know that I haven't heard you make one complaint about this injury?
I don't want to.
But you haven't, and that's phenomenal. Prior to taking Prozac, you would have been complaining, you would have been scared, you would have been fearful, you would have been anxious about it. You're accepting. I mean, you don't love it, as you said. It's not like you're in this false sense that it's, but I can see the difference. And I kind of just like, want to give thanks, because I feel that we've won the emotional lottery, to grow up your whole life with your mother who is in this immense psychological pain, and for her to be liberated and just to attain this level of happiness that, quite frankly, most people don't even have. You're happier than I am. I never thought I'd say that. I'm a happy person.
Never.
You are happier than I am, and that I never thought I would say. So I kind of want to say thank you to Prozac, thank you to the scientists, thank you to the people who really deeply understand the brain.
Thank you to my psychiatrist. But also, this kind of injury has taught me also. I said to Justin the other day, the most powerful thing I've learned is to accept, and that is from taking an antidepressant.
Well, this is, we think about acceptance and as a sort of spiritual attainment, and yet what I've seen with you is that the drug, and that's what it is, has changed your neurochemistry, which has enabled you to attain that hallowed state of acceptance. These things go hand in hand, and that's why I say your best option, if you really are struggling and you're in that dark place, is to take a multi-prong approach. But I'm so glad that you did it. I know that it was a big thing for you, and I'm just so grateful, Ma. I love you.
I love you, Jai, and I'm very grateful that you told me to take drugs. I would never have done it,
Yeah.
And there's a time for everything. As Justin says, it could have been done earlier, but I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I was so ready now because I was not ready to go on.
Yeah. It was Rahm Emanuel who said, never waste a good crisis. You had a crisis, you didn't waste it, and you grabbed.
When my homeopath said to me, Lee, it's okay, I thought, I got the okay. Namaste.
Thank you, I love you.